Hello everyone, it's Christine here with Julya Hajnoczky. Yes, we had our masks on, but so you can actually hear us, we're going to keep distance and lose the masks. I'm going to stick mine in my back pocket. Also, we're both double vaccinated. I've checked her hard, so we're good as well. I know it's a weird time for a live stream, but we really wanted to get in kind of one last hurrah with the Alfresco Science Machine. It's a beautiful day, so come on down. We're here until 3. We have a s'more station, and Julya will talk to you about the show, give you a tour of her fabulous little mobile studio. So that's the plug for this afternoon. Here until 3. We're going to feed you. You're going to get your sugar intake. So thanks for coming today, Julya. We did this before at the tail end of the show, but it's actually been a really great response. The show was, of course, up, February to April, and no one saw it at the White Museum. So had a lot more people coming down. I thought this was a good place to start because this is, of course, the beginning of the show, and we're going to roll through the show, and then we're going to have a little tour of the Alfresco Science Machine as well, for those of you who are unable to make it. I think a good place to start, especially with this image, is, the idea that you were basically encapsulating a lot of different areas of the country in this body of work instead of them being pieces from different areas. Like this very much speaks of a certain geographical area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's when I first started, like you say, it was kind of a bunch of stuff that I collected and brought home to the studio and then sort of got around to later. And it was a lot of just aesthetic choices, like this feather looks nice with this wood.
Right.
So
nothing wrong with that. But
yeah, which is nice. But pretty quickly, I was like, I really would like this to be more meaningful and have a little bit more to it. So, so I really changed the way that I work, and so now everything that is in an image is from one place, and so I'm spending, days or however much time I have just really exploring a place and kind of getting a sense of what grows there. So I don't even really collect things until a few days in at least. And then when I do, I'm always kind of composing like in my hand as I go because I've already got an idea of what that place should kind of look like or what I want to have in a final image. So now they're a lot more like almost like a landscape photo.
Yeah.
But with the world that they belong in kind of missing or gone, which is sort of the sadder, darker side of a lot.
Right. We're going to touch on a bit of that too, because I think, I won't give it away, but the title Refugium has, a lot of meaning too, and we'll maybe roll into that with the next one. I guess what I love about this one too is that, I guess I immediately think of like southern Alberta when I see it too, right? Especially with the little bits of cacti and, it's just a gorgeous little representation. Well, and they tell a story, I guess, too, right, of these places, which I also like. Okay, let's keep moving. We've got a lot of pieces to get through. We're not going to hold you up. And this is another one that's kind of here. Let me get on the other side. We're awkward.
The social distancing.
I know, exactly. It's like you there, me here. And this is another one that's from southern Alberta, is it? Correct?
Yeah. This is sort of around the Cypress Hills area.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful place to camp if you haven't checked it out. And what I love about this one too, I kind of noticed the sedum, but then we've got the little creatures. Were there creatures in the shells?
Well, and that is exactly the process that I went through at this spot too. Was like, look at this beautiful, intricate kind of firework-looking flower, and then, oh, wait a minute, there's it's crawling with snails.
Right.
So these were collected empty. No snails were harmed in the making of this art.
So cut it back off, the shells were vacated.
So it really is, it takes you through that sort of little discovery in a way that I had too when I was at this place.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this one also, there's many of them through the show, but if you're not familiar with the work, they really much are you're creating these little universes, and I know that's intentional.
Yeah.
So maybe let's touch on now that we've got into the whole idea of Refugium, right? Because I was really interested in the title, and once you explained it to me, it was like, of course, this is the perfect title for this body of work. So give us the cool notes of...
Yeah, totally. And the Cypress Hills one is actually a really good one to talk about because it is, it embodies the actual biological definition of that. Because if you have ever been to the Cypress Hills, you sort of drive across this prairie, and then there's this like weird island of kind of forest that suddenly pops up. And so this idea of refugium in biology is these places that for one reason or another have been isolated and cut off from what's around them. So the Cypress Hills, it was the glacier that traveled across the continent, but because it's higher up, it didn't get glaciated.
Yeah, it kind of like left a chunk, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Brent, you kind of know about this. Sorry, our cinematographer as an archaeologist.
So we like flip the camera.
What is it called? No, glacial erratic? No. What is it called? Come on, just say it.
It's just a refugium, like.
Oh, it's just a refugium.
Glacial erratics are the big rocks that are left behind, like the Okotoks.
Right,
yeah,
sorry.
there's big, which there's lots of in Cypress Hills, which is super cool.
But this is also the beauty of the work. It's a combination of science and art, so I'm still learning. But yes, but I love that idea, right? And so, but you're also creating refugiums within the bodies of work.
Yeah.
I mean, in this case, you know, it's kind of meta refugium.
Well, no, totally, and it is, and it for me, it kind of speaks to the idea that the more we develop human sort of spaces, the more we're creating these sort of human created refugia in like national parks, provincial parks, places like that. But they're really kind of cut off, which makes them a weird, almost unnatural kind of segmentation or so.
Well, and yeah, and I mean, and I know I talked about this before. With the idea of like, you know, being careful when you're collecting these things. I mean, I made a joke about, I think I was in this area plucking a flower and having one of the archaeology friends say, don't do that, because if everybody did that, there would be no more of like little thing you plucked like here in this area. And I hadn't considered that. It's like, what, you know, but it's like, of course it's true. These things, as we kind of force them, are becoming more precious. So let's elevate them. So, okay, let's move along. Yeah, I know. Like, where do we go? Let's go to mushroom room. So, Brent, if you could just maybe kind of pan so that everybody can kind of get a little bit of a shot of these 3 mushroom pieces. Which, Julia, these are Kananaskis, correct?
Some of them.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are actually from 3 different spots around the world. So the one that you're looking at right now is also from the Cypress Hills area.
Okay.
The first one that we saw was from out in BC, and then the one that you're looking at now, that's from sort of Kananaskis region.
The infamous fairy puke
Yes.
lichen.
Everyone's favorite lichen.
Well, and I know you have a particular affiliation to mushrooms as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. They're just such interesting otherworldly kind of creatures. Like they're not plants, which is maybe not necessarily common knowledge. They're their own kingdom.
Right.
And they're just so mysterious. Like they spring up kind of seemingly out of nowhere, and they actually are. They connect pretty much the entire plant world. So a lot of recent studies have found that actually the entire forest is connected by this underground network of fungal hyphae, which are these tiny little hair-like strands.
It's mind-blowing.
It is, and it lets trees talk to each other and share resources, and it's just, it really is mind-blowing.
I'm going to turn off the heater while she continues to talk about.
So I've been getting really interested in studying mushrooms more. The first piece that you saw that had sort of these clouds of spores coming out of it has been a really interesting way to sort of explore more time-based pieces, I guess, and making videos, time-lapse videos of these spores coming out too, because it happens at a different timeline than sort of human eyes can necessarily appreciate. So that captures something that's happening much more slowly than we normally get to see, and at a tiny scale that we also don't get to see. So.
Well, and that's true, right? Because some of these things are so itty-bitty, and anyone who knows you knows from our discussion, that she's the worst person to hike with because what should take like 15 minutes takes about 2 hours because you're just exploring all these beautiful things that we're like stepping right on, like move over plants. But back, I mean, let's turn around, Brent, so that we can, because here you've actually even captured spores, right?
So
that's what that hazy.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the spores I was talking about. So these ones, I'll set the mushrooms up on the glass of the scanner, which is where I used to take these photos. And if you leave it for a good 24, 48 hours, the spores just sort of slowly start to drift out in these beautiful clouds. And I can capture it on the glass, and they're pretty magical. They're really neat to see.
Well, and I use that word a lot to describe your work because it is magical. Again, like these little guys, like so we're cool. But yeah, we're looking at it, and again, like I said, you're creating like these almost like like Le Petit Prince kind of universes of like animals and plants and sometimes little creatures that donate themselves for portraiture in your pieces, but I love that too. It's just forcing us to have like a closer look at what is really around us. Like you've already tuned in, but the rest of us, like you said, we're just like marching on over.
Wait, come back,
But and there is, and I think because wasn't it just like Mushroom Day or something? I think there was something that.
Probably. It's fall is really mushroom season. They're
sure.
kind of springing up everywhere.
Right.
It's sort of the famous mushroom flush. So
right.
Yeah, there's lots of foraging going on and special events. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
So get out there, embrace mushrooms. Find out which ones are edible or not. I know that's like
that's key.
Let's move in here, maybe, because why not? Because we have the big pièce de résistance. The Monotropa uniflora.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yes. What is okay? So his common name is
Ghost pipe.
Thank you.
Yeah. And normally, so these are sort of halfway past their prime. So normally when you see these, when they're fresh, they're completely white. So the stem is white, the flower is white, and it's sort of hanging over in a bell, which is why they call it ghost pipe, because it sort of has that pipe shape. But these are really interesting too, and a good place to go from the mushrooms because these ones need mushrooms to live because they don't photosynthesize. Because they're completely white.
Right.
So they team up with a particular mushroom. So if you find these actually, then you come back a little later in the season and you're very likely to find their mushroom partners.
Huh. Okay.
And so they, as they dry up, their heads kind of rise up, and then there's the seeds at the top.
Well, just so striking too, because you do see like these like white stalks coming out of this tiny little fluff of moss, which again, I know you do have affinity for moss, so you'll probably see that again as we roll through all the different
mosses to come.
But I love that too because it's made me look at moss a different way as well. Like you just think of moss being one thing.
Yeah, like a green carpet.
Yeah, and there's just one of them, right? Like there's not multiple, it's just one.
It's just moss.
And it's everywhere. But as I know from you now, it is not the case. Like
we've all learned an important lesson.
No, exactly.
Moss diversity.
Science, love it. But I also really love this format because it is break from. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but for the most part, they are kind of two sizes that are available for sale in all of the images. So if you love this one but wanted it small, that's an option. Or if you love this one over here and you wanted it big, that's an option. And similar with this one, actually, we just got the other one in, so I'm curious to see it at a slightly smaller scale. But and let's look at, because this is the Dryas octopetala, correct?
Yeah.
I'm learning. And these are kind of, I know, these are pretty, like you can see these hiking. A lot of people who come into the gallery said, like, I know these, I've seen these.
Yeah, these are close neighbors. They're all around. They mostly in the mountains, but I've seen them even just in parks in Calgary.
Okay.
So and they're just, you see this carpet. They're quite small, and it's just like a little fluff of seeds. But at this scale, they're kind of like, it's just really cool to see. That's actually my favorite part of the whole process of making this work. Is like when the scan comes up on the computer, I can just like zoom, and just see like all these details that you normally don't get to see just with the naked eye. So
well, and it's hard to see on the video, but like there are these just tiny little tendril, like it's it really is. And I've heard people say that it's like, I can't believe the detail, you know, like it is. That's also magical as well too, when you're just experiencing these things like so differently in every minutia of it. And I also like these because they're quite magical too, right? Like this one seems to be kind of dancing a little bit, like its skirt's being kicked up, like it's a little playful, which is fun.
Yeah, at this scale they get a little bit more personality, right? Each
right.
one is its own individual, as opposed to when you see them out like just
Good
kind
point.
of a
Yes.
you know, a field of fluffs, and it's like, well, okay, they feel much more uniform then, but this way you sort of get to consider each one as its own, like,
Right.
this is the tall, you know, floofy one, and this is the one I can't keep track of, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's move. We're gonna move around. This one is quite different because it's a lot fuller composition, and we don't have to like spend a lot. But everybody just loves this, the little, you know, that little pop of color.
Yeah.
But it's got, but that's not to say that there isn't, you know, like this kind of like darker bit here, and of course, like there's a lot of little tiny things in here.
Yeah, and this is just another example of what I was really kind of thinking about, kind of trying to capture a whole place, not necessarily just one or two things that live in a place, but sort of a fuller image.
Right.
So it'll be stuff that has come from maybe a whole, I don't know, one whole park, for instance, and all sort of included together.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I think for that reason, right, because you are seeing so much more than, you know, I mean, there's something to be said about the simplicity of these ones, but yeah, you can really spend time. And, you know, this is almost like kind of hidden, so at first you don't see it.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's keep going, because we have to, lots to see. Okay, it's coming here. Again, one that is fuller, with the pine cones. And tell me about these pine cones, because there's obviously a lot of different...
Yeah, lots of stuff in here. So this one I've done a couple of residencies in the last year out in Creston, BC, at a place called Empire of Dirt. And so this is one that I made there, and this is just, it's really just kind of capturing like the whole forest community, like all the trees from that place.
Right.
And one of the things that I love about the cones is that, again, unless you're looking at them really closely and maybe with magnification, you don't get to see how almost each one of those is its own little world too, because a lot of these have lichen growing on them, or other little seeds caught on them and riding along, and moss growing on them. So these are all really interesting to look at this scale.
Well, the variety of shape and color, because again, I think, I mean, I didn't grow up in the city, but, it's easy to become a city person and again, just think a pine cone's a pine cone, but really, there's again, it's like you're just saying, whoa, okay, no, there are, I particularly like the strata and this one, and
yeah, these ones are beauties. These ones are so hard, they're hard to find intact ones because they just they crumble, but they have such a beautiful shape to them. But they're just like an endless list of experiments on how to encapsulate a seed, right? Just beautiful.
So
variety.
true. Yeah, I mean, there's again the whole story of that, because I know, of course, that these trees that take, it's like, it's a wonder we have it, but the science is so great, it's figured out what to do.
Yeah.
This one, which looks a little crooked, I'm just going to do a little adjustment. Sometimes that happens when a door gets closed. This one was one I think that people would have seen at the gallery, but it was still a great inclusion in the show because, of course, it is so gorgeous. Like, the depth of field on this one kind of blows my mind, and it is like little fireworks with this perfectly formed little chunk of moss. And those of you who've been to the Banff Springs will recognize this from the rental room. So this is juniper, correct? So this is another kind of timely.
This one's large.
Large, sorry, not just large. I knew that. That's what I meant, because it's that time of year when.
Yes, it's a large season.
Yes.
Yeah, and this you can appreciate without having to elbow other people aside.
Right.
Yeah, this one is just sort of right in the middle of changing, because the larch is one of those coniferous trees that loses all its needles, which is pretty unusual. So they turn, as most people probably know, there's like beautiful golden yellow in the fall, and they all fall off. But this, and it's funny because this particular piece has such a lovely shape to it, and I've looked at larches a lot since I made this one, and I've never found another one that has the same kind of like. They all look totally different from this one. So there's something really special about this beautiful
like
little
winning the lottery.
bonsai.
Well, and I was going to ask you too. It's like, so, presumably you were maybe like out hiking, in the season, and you're just like, of course, larch. Like, take a little like snippet and.
Yeah, and this one was near Wood Buffalo National Park, so I went way up north on a trip a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's really cool, and there's lots of larch growing up there, and it was actually just late August, but fall happens much earlier up north, so the timing worked out. Everything was just in this beautiful kind of fall color phase, and just outside the park actually there was this long, like a wall of larch, and so I was just appreciating all of those, and found one beautiful little piece.
Which is all you need.
Home, yeah. So.
But it is, and I think, and that's kind of something I don't think we have talked about too, is like the curation of, because, there's probably lots of little tufts of, well, you said there was lots of larch, but this, you've never seen kind of one that is, done the same thing, and really it is like kind of compositionally like ideal, and again, with little pieces. So it's not just like accident. I mean, you know what to look for though too, right? Like
yeah. I'm always thinking about it, and as I've continued to work on this project, I mean, I have a better sense of how things will photograph, just how they'll sort of occupy the space in the image. But yeah, it really is just a lot of looking, and these little kind of perfect shapes will catch my eye, and that's just how it goes. Yeah, just a lot of attention to detail.
I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time on, but what I liked this is there's like magical little bursts of, like this one is, again, very much like a little universe floating in space with the way you get like the little bits of debris around it, and these tendrils, like what are these tendrils?
Yeah, so it's similar to what we saw with the mushroom spores, so these are the mosses. Little spore capsules that they put up, and so those little kind of sparkles up there, that's the moss spores, which sometimes is just a beautiful thing that happens when I put the things down in the glass. They just kind of go and there it is. So yeah, happy accidents.
I know. To me, they're almost like little creatures with their head, like like a Jim Henson kind of.
Yeah.
Like there's like
there's a lot of the shapes that you can get that kind of anthropomorphic or almost like a little animal or something.
For sure. Yeah. And the more time I spend with them, actually, they become, like the last month I have made some friends. It's like, I will never look at these plants the same way again, right? Because, you do see them in a completely different light. Different scale too, but in a different light.
Yeah, very different scale.
I have some people looking in the other gallery, but I do want to, we'll just go around to the front because there's the one piece that was from your
Pacific Rim.
Yeah, was it a residency or was that just a road trip?
Yeah, it's sort of a self-directed residency, I guess.
Because during the pandemic, she was very busy. I don't know if any of you who follow her on Instagram will know that. Yeah. In fact, she was just back from the coast as well. Like, just fresh.
Yeah, and this is one, like I said, from Pacific Rim, so on the west coast on Vancouver Island. And again, in the last couple of years, I started working with Parks Canada to get collections permits, which is kind of a funny process to go through as an artist, because they're set up for scientists, which is like, how many fish do you think you're going to have to kill to do your experiment? I'm like, 0.
Yes. It's like, I'm more interested in.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny to sort of work inside this scientific kind of box, but also be able to look at things as a visual artist, which is really, really a different thing. And I've talked about this before, I think, but like I did Math 30, like grade 12 math, like 3 or 4 times, trying to get a mark high enough to get into a science program. and I just never, I don't think I ever got over like a 62%, which turned out okay because I think I could still take what I learn from science and apply it to the work that I'm doing,
Sure.
and it informs the stories. But at the same time, I don't have to kind of follow that convention of being very unbiased. I can be very biased in my affection for these things.
Right.
I can be just like obsessed and full of love and enthusiasm, and which as a scientist you may feel those things, but you can't necessarily.
Right. You have to separate it from.
You can't put that in your study.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Well, and it's so true, and I hadn't thought about that again. See, every time I learn a little something different as well, right? Like, the different path you would have taken as
right?
Julya the biologist. Yeah. But what I love about this one too is just the line, like the linear line that you've gotten from the seagrass. I find that it really kind of stands out for that reason. It is also the only one from Pacific Rim. There are others available. You can look at our website to see some of the others that are part of the series. Because they are, yes, they're very different in feel, of course, because everything is kind of wet. And seaweed. Like there are these other different little creatures. So
yeah, because these are, I mean, if you've ever been out there and walked on the beach, you probably see these all the time. Like they're these beautiful, almost little calligraphies of seagrass that washes up on the beach, and I could spend hours just taking pictures of those little compositions, and I'm so obsessed with it that I wanted to try and do something that would mimic that. And these two, like every time I see one of these, they're all different. Like they've all got a different kind of kelp growing off it, and a different arrangement of barnacles, and different species of barnacles. Like each one of those is its own world too, and they're just endlessly fascinating to me.
Well, no, and I think you hit the nail on the head with this one, because it really does have, like you said, it is like a calligraphy. It is like a delicate kind of drawing that's just got these few little inclusions, again, in a very minimalist way. Yeah. So, yeah, which I also love seeing too, because it's like, you're also, well, in all of these, and I guess has anybody who's seen the show or even now, you can see that the compositions themselves are really quite diverse and sophisticated, because you're responding to the materials. I think there's something to be said by that too. They could all just be crammed full and done, but it's
show a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there is this like bit of restraint and like thoughtfulness as to how to, like you said, you've been looking at them for ages.
Yeah.
I tell you to come see the show, but it's this is the last day. But the work will be here, and of course we'll have some pieces up going forward. Happy to show anybody any of the pieces that are in the show if you do want to pop in and see them. Our next show goes up next week, but guaranteed there's going to be a couple of these around the sidewalls. So please don't let that stop you from coming in. I'm happy to do a private showing with you. No problem at all. Let's just head outside and quickly do a little tour of Alfresco. Getting hungry, it's almost s'more time. Yeah, we're here till 3. So, and this is the Alfresco Science Machine, which Julie, you call
the Mobile Natural History Collection Laboratory. That's how you get a grant.
Yes.
You come up with a very elaborate, important sounding name.
But I think what's remarkable to me, which is also why I wanted her to bring it, is because, one, I hadn't seen it, and two, I was amazed because she built it with her dad, but still, your hand built, to become, I know you haven't had a grant to produce it, but how amazing is it? So let's have a little tour, because there's this, the kind of sleeping area in here.
Extra cozy.
But that, not so, lots of light. Like I know that one's closed, but there's like the window, so it is really.
It is nice and bright.
And then around the back here is the workstation.
Lots of people who build these, they build this area to kind of be the kitchen. But I do so much camping in bear country that I'm like, not a good idea.
Right.
Plus, obviously, it's much more functional for me to have a space to work. Yeah, so I can set the scanner up back here if I want to, and just go work in the field, which is really nice. Which is what I've been trying to do is, make stuff on site, and then I can sort of leave everything there, like put it back.
So it's like kind of
Perfect.
perfect for that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Got the field guides, microscope, like some specimens, and not all the. So it's like, again, it's kind of telling the story of how she gets to work, which I think is amazing that you have, this little mobile studio.
Yeah, it really
It's fantastic.
It's totally changed the way I work. So
Yeah.
I can kind of go anywhere, anytime, and roll in and get right to it.
And it's got everything. So again, we're here till 3. Come see it in person and enjoy a s'more. Talk to Julya.
Sit by the fire.
If you want to have a little private tour of the show, fantastic. So thank you again for coming.
Thanks for
This has
having
been
me.
fun. And if you don't come down, just pop in the gallery, look on our website. Like, you know how it works. If you're on social media, you know how this works. Just find her website or mine. And we just look forward to seeing you in the gallery sometime soon.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. See you soon. It's like, come down. See, there's a lot of repetition here. All right. That was. Seems like we have quite a few people join. Yeah. Wow, yeah, we actually had a lot of people. It's like, maybe it's what we do it is on like, Sundays.
Holy. Yeah. Well, I mean, really, most people are
That's
probably
great.
just sitting around if they're not like outdoors doing things.
Oh, I just captured that. Whoops. We should have. Whatever. Okay. I must hit that.